Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm Lex, and you are listening to the C9 Podcast Show. Today we've got a session that is specifically tailored for our listeners who are navigating the high-stakes world of Australian business. So I'm talking to you, the business owners, the C-level executives, and really all the decision makers who follow C9. Joining me to help unpack everything, as always, is Vera.
It's great to be here. And honestly, I'm ready to shake things up a little bit today. We're looking at some numbers from our source material that are going to make a lot of finance directors and probably CEOs very uncomfortable.
That is exactly the kind of energy we like here. We want to challenge the status quo. And just before we dive in, I want to give a massive shout out to the team making this deep dive possible. We're presented today by C9. For those of you who don't know, C9 is Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company. If you're looking to build something robust, something scalable, you are in the right place.
They really are the experts in this space. And speaking of expertise, the source material they've provided today is an absolute eye-opener.
It really is. I was reading through this guide on payment migration, and I saw a statistic that I circled it 3 times with a red pen. I honestly thought it was a typo in the document.
I think I know exactly which number you're looking at. It's that cost analysis, isn't it?
It is. It's about direct debit. You know, the plumbing of the Australian economy, that boring utility that every business uses for recurring payments. The source says most Australian businesses assume their direct debit system costs them, what, a few $1,000s a year in fees? 50 cents here, $1 there?
That's the common perception. It's viewed as a low-cost utility, like keeping the lights on. You don't really think about it. You just pay the transaction fees and you move on.
But then I scroll down. The guide says for a business processing, say, 10,000 transactions a month, the true cost isn't a few $1,000s. It's a $507,588 annually. That is over $500,000 bleeding out of the business every single year. Surely that has to be an exaggeration.
It sounds like clickbait, doesn't it? It sounds like a made-up marketing number. But when you actually peel back the layers of the data, and that's exactly what we're going to do today, it's not an exaggeration. In fact, for many businesses, especially those with high churn or complex reconciliation needs, it's actually a conservative estimate. It's what the industry calls the hidden tax of legacy infrastructure.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that number. We need to understand exactly how a 50-cent transaction fee morphs into a $500,000 loss. And we need to talk about the solution, which is the migration to PayTo. But this isn't just about saving money, is it? There's a very specific reason we're talking about this right now.
There is. This is the why now component. We're staring down the barrel of a compliance cliff in 2026. The Australian government is mandating PayTo for critical functions, like Payday super contributions, by July 2026.
So this isn't just an efficiency upgrade where you can, choose to do it if you feel like it.
No, it's becoming a condition of doing business. If you're still relying on the old direct debit rails in 2026, you're not just losing money, you're about to hit a regulatory wall. The government wants to modernize the payment infrastructure and, well, they're not asking nicely anymore.
Okay, let's back up and act as the forensic accountants here. I want to understand this $500,000 figure because I imagine a lot of listeners are skeptical right now. If my bank statement says I paid $7,000 in transaction fees, how do you get to $500,000?
It's the million-dollar question, or I guess the $500,000 question. The source material, the PayTo migration guide, breaks this down into what it calls the complete direct debit cost structure. The mistake most finance teams make is that they only look at that one line item on the bank statement.
The visible fee. The 50 cents.
Exactly. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. The real money is lost in 3 sort of invisible areas: settlement delay, failed payment churn, and operational overhead. Let's start with settlement delay.
This is the time it takes for the money to actually move from the customer to the business.
Correct. You have to remember, direct debit is old technology. It's batch processing. It's essentially 1990s tech trying to run in a 2020s world. It happens overnight or over the weekend, so it takes 3 to 5 business days for those funds to actually settle in your account. Now, imagine your business moving $500,000 a month. That money is effectively floating in limbo for up to 5 days.
So you've made the sale, the customers agree to pay, but the money is just floating in the ether.
It's floating. You can't use it, you can't invest it, you can't pay your own suppliers with it yet, and capital has a cost. If you calculate the cost of working capital at roughly 6%, which is a pretty standard benchmark, that delay alone is costing a business about $30,000 a year. You're paying interest to float your own revenue.
Okay, so that's 30 grand. I mean, that's a decent salary for a junior employee or a nice marketing campaign, but we're not at 500,000 yet. Where is the massive leak?
The massive leak is failed payment churn. This is the killer. The data shows that about 15% of direct debit transactions fail. Insufficient funds, closed accounts, expired cards, wrong account numbers.
15%. That seems incredibly high. That's almost 1 in 6 payments.
It is high. And it happens because direct debit is a blind pull system. You, as the merchant, you don't know if the money's there until you try to take it. And by then, it's too late. The transaction fails, you get hit with a dishonor fee, and the customer gets annoyed. But here's the ticker. 15% of those failures never recover. The customer churns, they leave.
Just because the payment failed. That seems a bit extreme.
Well, think about the psychology of it. A payment fails. Maybe you retry it, and it fails again. Then your system automatically cuts off their service. Maybe it's a software subscription, a gym membership, or a utility. The customer gets an embarrassing email or a text, they get annoyed, they think, well, I was thinking of canceling anyway, and they just walk away.
Ah, I see. It's the nudge they needed to leave.
Exactly. If you do the math, and the source material is very specific here, if you lose just 120 customers a year because of payment friction, and each customer is worth, say, $550 a month, that is $72,000 in lost annual revenue.
And that's recurring revenue. So the lifetime value loss is actually exponential. You're not just losing that 1 month. You're losing the next 3 years of that customer.
Precisely. You've paid the marketing cost to acquire them, you've onboarded them, and then you lose them because your payment gateway is clumsy. It's incredibly expensive.
That hurts. That is actual growth just vanishing into thin air.
And we haven't even touched the third bucket, which is arguably the most painful for your internal teams. Operational overhead. This is the human cost.
The people power required to keep the whole machine running.
Think about your finance team. Because direct debit is a batch system, it rarely matches up perfectly with your billing system. You have lump sums arriving, failures from 3 days ago coming in today. The source estimates finance teams spend roughly 40 hours a month just reconciling bank files. That's $36,000 a year in labor, just checking spreadsheets.
That is a full work week every single month, just staring at Excel.
Just for reconciliation. Then you have the team investigating those 800 monthly failures we mentioned. You have to pay someone to look at the list, figure out which ones to retry, which ones to call. That's estimated at 120 grand in labor. Then you have customer service answering calls from confused people asking, why did my payment fail? Or why was I charged twice?
So when you add up the finance manager's time, the dispute team, the support reps, and then layer on the lost customers and the cost of capital,
you get to $507,588. It's death by 1,000 cuts. You don't see one big bill for it. It's just efficiency leaking out of every single department.
that is a staggering realization. It really reframes the whole conversation, and the source compares this legacy cost to the cost of PayTo.
Yes. For the exact same volume of transactions, the total cost of ownership for PayTo is estimated at $28,704 annually.
Wait, I want to make sure I heard that right. From over $500,000 down to $28,000.
That's a 94% cost reduction. It's almost pure profit going straight back to the bottom line simply by upgrading the infrastructure.
Okay, you have solved the problem, the building is on fire, and we are burning cash. So let's talk about the solution. What exactly is PayTo? Is it just a rebrand of a direct debit, a nicer logo?
Not at all. It's a complete architectural shift. Think of it like jumping from a fax machine to instant messaging. PayTo runs on the new payments platform, or NPP. The critical difference is that unlike direct debit, which is batch-based and slow, PayTo is real-time, 247, 365 days a year.
So there's no overnight batch, no waiting for the weekend to clear?
None. The comparison the guide makes is stunning. Direct debit takes days to confirm settlement. PayTo completes the transaction and confirms settlement in under 15 seconds.
15 seconds. So for a business owner, that cash flow gap we talked about, that 30 grand cost of capital, it just disappears.
Instantly. Your liquidity improves overnight. You have the money the moment the transaction happens. But what's even more fascinating here is the user experience shift. This isn't just back-end plumbing. It changes how the customer interacts with you.
Right, because with direct debit, as a consumer, I feel like I just sign a form, maybe a paper one, maybe digital, and I just hope for the best. I don't really know when the money's coming out. It's very opaque.
Precisely. You sign a mandate and you give the business blanket permission to pull funds whenever they want. PayTo flips that dynamic entirely. Customers approve specific agreements inside their own secure banking app. They can see exactly who is charging them, how much, and how often.
So it's sitting right there next to my savings account. It might say Combank or N app.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting for the consumer. You can pause, modify, or cancel that agreement instantly inside your bank app. You don't have to call a call center and wait on hold for 20 minutes just to cancel a gym membership.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If I'm a business owner, doesn't that terrify me? Making it that easy for a customer to cancel. I want a little bit of friction there.
That is the most common fear we hear. But the data suggests that transparency actually builds trust. When customers feel they have control, they are less likely to rage quit. Plus, think about the fraud angle. Because PayTo requires that authentication inside the banking app, usually with Face ID or a secure PIN, fraud rates are 73% lower than direct debit.
That is massive. So you're not getting those fake signups or unauthorized chargebacks.
Exactly. It moves the control to the customer, which paradoxically makes them stick around longer because they don't feel trapped. And it wipes out a huge chunk of your dispute resolution costs because the customer literally authorized the payment with their face. You can prove it.
So we've got the cost savings, the speed, the better experience. But let's circle back to that compliance cliff you mentioned, July 2026. Why is that date so important?
This is critical for every Australian employer. The government is serious about modernizing payment infrastructure. The mandate for Payday super contributions via PayTo is just the tip of the spear. They want to eliminate the lag in the superannuation system.
Right, because right now, super payments can float around for days or weeks before hitting an employee's fund.
Exactly. And the government wants that to be instant. They want to ensure employees get their money when they're supposed to. But it's not just the government. Major utilities, telcos, subscription services, they're all moving this way.
So direct debit is effectively becoming legacy tech, like using a checkbook.
It's becoming the fax machine of payments. If you're still asking a customer to fill out a form and wait 5 days for clearance in 2026, while your competitor offers instant, real-time confirmation, you just look outdated.
It's a huge competitive disadvantage.
Huge. And there's the issue of technical debt. Your billing systems are connected to your CRM, your accounting software, your inventory. If you wait until May 2026 to start thinking about this, you are going to be in a world of pain. These integrations take time. You can't just slap this on over a weekend.
That leads us perfectly into the how. If I'm a listener and I'm convinced I want to save the $500,000, I want to be compliant, how do I actually make this switch? Can I just, download a plugin, ask an AI to write me some code?
Oh, the AI cowboy approach. The source material has a very stern warning about this. Please, for the love of your business, do not do that.
Why not? AI is great at everything, isn't it? I use it for my emails.
It's great at drafting emails, sure, but writing complex, secure payment integrations that need to work in production at scale? Not yet. The guide specifically mentions the trap of easy solutions or cheap templates. Payment integration is high stakes. If your code fails, you aren't just getting an error message, you're failing to collect revenue, or worse, double charging people.
Right. Not the kind of bug you want to explain to the board.
No. The approach C9 advocates, and this is really industry best practice, is something called discovery-driven development.
Discovery-driven development. Can you unpack that for us?
It means you don't write a single line of code until you have mapped the entire architecture. You need to understand how the payment layer talks to the accounting layer, how it talks to the customer database. Skipping the discovery session is the #1 reason these projects fail.
It sounds like building a house without a blueprint. You might get some walls up, but the plumbing won't work and the roof will leak.
That's a perfect analogy. And this is where C9 really differentiates themselves. They use what they call blended hybrid teams.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, it addresses the cost issue. Custom software in Australia can be expensive. Local talent is in high demand. So C9 combines Australian expertise, local project leads who understand the Australian banking market, the super regulations, the compliance needs, with global development talent.
So you get the local context and the quality control, but you optimize the pricing.
Exactly. You get a blended rate. But my favorite part of their philosophy is knowledge transfer.
What does that mean for the client?
Well, a lot of software agencies, they want to hook you on a retainer forever. They want to be the gatekeepers of your code. If you want to change a button color, you have to pay them. C9's philosophy is that they build the internal capability for the client. They want you to own the solution. They don't just rent you a system, they teach your internal team how it works.
That is rare.
Hmm.
Usually vendors love that black box approach where you're stuck with them for life.
It is. And regarding the timeline, C9 recommends a staged migration. You don't flip a switch overnight. You deliver ROI every 8 to 12 weeks. You move a segment of customers, maybe your new signups first. You test, validate, and then you move the next batch.
Which makes sense. You don't want to risk your entire revenue stream on one big deployment day. That sounds like a recipe for a heart attack.
Precisely. But, and this is the key takeaway for the timeline, you need to start scheduling those discovery sessions now. If everyone waits until early 2026, there simply won't be enough developers available to do the work. It's going to be a bottleneck.
Or rush to the exits.
Correct. And you do not want to be at the back of that queue when the deadline hits.
So let's bring this all together. We have covered a lot of ground. We started with the shocking realization that sticking with direct debit is likely costing your business $500,000 a year in hidden costs.
And we've seen that the solution, PayTo, isn't just cheaper, it's vastly superior. It's instant, it reduces fraud, and it gives customers the control they expect.
And finally, the clock is ticking. The government and the market are moving to this new standard by 2026. Standing still is effectively moving backward.
That's the reality. This is a survival strategy as much as it is a growth strategy.
So if you're listening to this and realizing your business is bleeding money, what's the next step?
The next step is to stop guessing and get a plan. You need to speak to the experts who are actually building these systems. You need to go to C9.
And where can they find them?
Head over to www.c9.com.au. That's the letter C, the number 9.com.au. You can schedule a discovery session right there. And remember, these guys are Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company. They aren't just selling a plugin, they are building the infrastructure for the future of your business.
www.c9.com.au. Definitely check that out. And hey, while you're reaching for your phone, make sure you hit the follow button on your podcast app right now. We have more deep dives coming that are going to help you navigate the tech landscape.
And please share this deep dive. If you know another business owner, a CFO, or a colleague who is constantly complaining about failed payments or reconciliation nightmares, send this to them. You might just save them $500,000.
That's a pretty good gift to give a friend.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you all with one final thought to chew on.
I have a question for you to mull over. In 2026, when your biggest competitor is offering instant, transparent, secure payments that clear in 15 seconds, and you're still asking your customers to sign a form and wait 5 days for clearance, will you still have customers?
That is the question. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye.